In the year 2048, we see an old dark tunnel with very old graffiti painted on it. Rob Johnson, a killer. Take your songs out of your actions. He isn't who he says he is. Get your money back. Only a psychopath does what Rob Johnson does. As we see a deadhead walking past these quotes, we hear the sound of a blade being drawn. As we see a man in the distance with a sword with a skull on the handle wrapped in twine, we see the deadhead gets killed by this person, and the person looks at these quotes on the wall, and as we see a tear rolling down his eye, he then starts to cut through a little bit of the skin that's on the deadhead as he puts its skull in a bag as this person keeps walking. We see him walking through the woods. We hear the sound of someone walking. He sees tracks up ahead as he follows it. We see he's walking through the dark woods ever so quietly as he finds it. It's a deer. He starts approaching it, and they are reaching for a knife quietly. We see the deer turns around as we then see it's reanimated. It then starts running towards him as the man runs as fast as he can, and then after a while of running, he then stops and he looks back out of breath and realizes he lost him. But as he walks through the woods, he sees an old abandoned town. We see he walks through this town and we hear absolutely nothing but silence. As the sun goes down, we then see him sitting in front of the fire with his bag. He opens it up as we see multiple different skulls in his bag. We then hear the sound of rocks being stepped on. We then see the man pulls out his weapon because the deer has caught up to him. But as we see someone sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. We hear someone saying, "Hey, he's waking up." We see a man and a woman standing above him. We see a man and a woman standing above him, and the girl puts a knife attached to a stump to his throat and says, "Not a good idea. We found skulls in your pack, and we know you've been through the area. Tell me your name, or we'll have another skull to add to your collection. You hear me? You hear me?" The man doesn't say anything, and the woman looks back at the man and says, Not so much of a talker, this one." The man says, "Here, I got this." The man takes a knife and stabs him once as the man screams out in pain, and then he starts laughing about it. And the man says, "Yeah, that hurt, huh? You see me and this woman? We are looking to play nice, in case you haven't noticed. So unless you want to be taken back by the West family, I suggest you take off that mask of yours and start talking." We see a woman running through the woods, covered in blood, as she passes by an old abandoned bridge. As she keeps running, she sees something. It appears to be an old house. As she slowly walks in, we see blood soaked on a carpet, leading to a bunch of torn up skin on the floor. The woman looks disgusted as she walks through this dark living room, ever so slowly. We see her walking through this old room with no sign of anyone around. She then hears a noise coming from inside. It sounds like some kind of creature, although we don't see what it is. She goes towards a window to close it. Out of nowhere, a man with a skull mask grabs her right hand. As she's trying to get him off of her, she then yells, "I'm not going back! I'm not going back!" But then the man cuts her on the arm as she screams out in pain as she closes the window. The blood is pouring out as she hears the man trying to open the door over and over again. She's running up the stairs as her arm is bleeding out. She locks herself in the bathroom as we see her whispering, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." But then, we see a bath filled with blood as we see a hand come out of the water. She quickly tries to open the window to escape, but it's not opening because it hasn't been touched in years. We see a dead head rising from the water. We see the man break into the house as he sees a blood trail leading up the stairs, and he follows it. He slowly walks up the stairs and says, "Jade, you know I like you. I said it would be over soon, and I promised to make it easy for you. But you just didn't listen. So now, it has to be slower." He busts the door down, and as we see Jade in the corner, and he pulls out his weapon with spikes at the end and says, "Found you." She's breathing heavily and says, "I'm not going back." He says, "You're already on your way." The girl says, "I'm not fucking going back." The man says, "Here comes the fun part." But then, the deadhead comes out of the bathtub and jumps onto the man and takes him down and starts ripping his insides apart and starts eating this guy alive as he screams out in pain. Jade sees her chance and breaks the window. She jumps out of there in a hurry while the deadhead is busy with the masked man. She jumps off the roof into the grass. As we see her arm is still bleeding pretty bad. As we see her running, we see her take a rest as she is out of breath and she leans up against a tree. As we then transition to the skull hunter tied to a tree. As we see the man look scared and the woman asks him, "How many of you are out there?" The man still says nothing. The woman says, "Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, talk about a closed book. All right, we'll do this the hard way then. One more chance, asshole. Who are you working for?" The man starts crying, and the woman grabs his mask and takes it off. As he looks scared, she rips his mask clean off. As we see several scars on his face, we see he looks terrified. As they look at him, and the man says, "Oh my God, you're Rob Johnson." The woman asks, "Who the hell is Rob Johnson?" The man says, "A rock star back in the 2010s. My mom and dad used to listen to his music all the time. Till one day he murdered one of his own fans. City found out, put him away for good. My mom told me that story many years ago. He was talked about all over town. Never forgotten. It makes sense now. You're hiding your face because you're afraid of facing your demons. You don't want people to know who you really are, what you really are all about. So what? Hide your face out here collecting these skulls? Killing people? Is that it?" Rob says, "No, I didn't." The woman says, "Oh yeah, that's exactly where I was gonna go to next. Your people attacked us last night. Attacked our horses, attacked our crew. Killed our people, families. So I want you to tell us everything we want to know about your people. Or I'm gonna drive this claw of mine through your skull and I will bring your head back to our leader. You should know. They're not really the listening type." Rob says, This isn't what it looks like." The woman says, "Oh, it's not? Then what is it?" "Huh?" Rob says, I'm not collecting these skulls by choice. I have to do this. Or someone I care for very much, they're gonna die. So if you think I'm the threat you're looking for, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, you caught the wrong guy." They lay off of him, and the man and woman walk away for a second. The man says, "You think we're being tricked right now?" The woman says, "Don't worry, I got him. Right now, we keep an eye on him and we get back to our people. That's all that happens. And if he keeps lying, and if he is with them, She smirks and says, "Huh, looks like we have a hostage of use." We see blood being wiped off a knife. As we see, it's the woman's blade on her stump. As we see, it's the girl from the West family. We see Rob walk up to both of them, and he says, "So, you got what you wanted?" The girl says, "More or less. Listen, we don't have time to question you anymore. You say you're legitimately a nobody trying to find someone you care about. We'll take your word on that. But we got people to get back to as well." Rob says, "Well, you've seen my face. You know who I am. So if it's not asking too much, you mind telling me who you are? Both of you." The man says, "Ain't none of your business, my friend." The girl says, "Look, our people are very secretive, and for a good reason. We've opened up to strangers before in the past, and we've paid for it. And we're not about to start now. We have beef with some of these men that walk around in these skull masks, and they attacked our camp last night." Rob says, "I know who they are. And as I said, they took someone I care about very much. So how about we compromise here? You help me get back to this person I'm looking for, and in addition, you find out what you need to know about the people that hurt you and protect yourselves too." And the man says, "Okay, I'll bite." The woman nods, and Rob and the two of the West family decide to join alliances. We see the three of them walking the roads, as Rob says, "So you ever gonna tell me your names?" The man says, "Sure, when hell freezes over. We don't give names to strangers, for safety reasons. And obviously our safety is already shit, so..." The woman sees a house up ahead and says, "Right there. We stay there for the night. We'll do this right by the morning." Rob says, "All right." He pulls out his weapon and knocks at the door and says, "Hey!" And he hears nothing, so they move in. They look through every room, and the guy says, "I think we're good." Back with Jade. We see her walking through the woods late at night. We see her arm looks infected, and she's barely on her feet. She sees a fence up ahead. As we see, it has barbed wire on it. She tries to walk across the big field as she sees multiple horses in the distance and a big farmhouse up the hill from far. She sees it and then starts getting dizzy, as we then see her fall to the ground and pass out. As it fades to night, we see a man with a gun on a horse finds her passed out. As we see, she starts to open her eyes ever so slowly. As we see a blurry vision from her. As we hear a man say to her, "You tripped on my wire. Look like death itself. Welcome to Blackberry Ranch." Back with Rob. We see three of them sitting by a campfire outside of the house, and Rob says, "That was one long walk. Fucking legs are killing me. Tomorrow we head out. See if we can reconnect with your people." The woman says, "We got ambushed pretty bad. Not even sure why. What's their motive, you know?" The man says, Well, we'll get answers soon enough. That's for damn sure. Well, I really hate to have us sitting here with our thumbs up our asses here, so, Rob, what kind of joyful adventures have you had out there all these years? How did you manage to survive?" Rob says, "A lot of things. A lot of mistakes. A lot of misspoken words about me. But I don't tell people because they don't give a damn. Back in my day when there was still a world around, hell, before either of you were born. If the media decided you were guilty of something, that's what you were guilty for. And there ain't no going back from it." The woman looks genuine and says, "I want to hear it." The man says, "Oh, come on, I was just about to turn in." She says, "Well, I'm not tired. Tell us what happened. Besides, if you want the West family to welcome you in with open arms, you gotta be honest, right?" Rob says, "All right. Well, let's go back to the year 2019. I'd argue when things were even worse than they are now. Back when the world used to rely on social media. Back when people knew everything about a person without even meeting face to face. That's right. That right there is the source of my life falling apart. So I was 22 years old, finally getting my neck out there in the rock world. This was late 2019. I had 2 hit albums, and I was touring all around the world. I was on my Deep Diver tour at the time. I was playing show after show, and for a while I felt unstoppable, which was my main problem. Being famous like that, thinking that whatever you do, people are just going to support and worship you. But that is far from the goddamn truth. The woman asks him, "So how did it go south?" Rob says, "It was one night. It was so quick. We were doing a show out in Washington, not anything unusual." As we see the crowd cheering Rob Johnson's name, we see the lights turn dark as the music begins. We see him come out and start singing. We hear him narrating through this. I got through most of the set. Then, it got near the end of the show and I was about to play my biggest hit, Regrets and Promises. But about midway through the song, I go into the audience and I play my guitar. The stage had a ramp that brings you down into the crowd. So I'm out there rocking, crowd singing, and when it's time to go back up the stage, I see this guy following me. I just thought it was a normal fan, but he was trying to say something to me. I kept moving, and he kept following me. I went back up the ramp and onto the stage. The song was ramping up, and I was getting ready to do my solo when all of a sudden this prick starts going up the ramp with this death stare, staring me in the face. Security was down there dealing with some other drunken idiots at the time. They got no cover on them. And the man starts walking towards me with a fucking knife. I didn't know what to do. I told him to stop, and he didn't. I took my guitar off of myself, and the woman says, "What? What did you do?" Rob says, "I swung at him, and I cracked him in the head with my fucking guitar. Blood went everywhere. His head busted open on the stage floor. He fell to the floor, and he was dead almost instantly." The man and the woman look horrified hearing this, and Rob says, "That's the same look they gave me." Concert ended. They took me away and locked me up. I thought I'd get out. I thought they'd see that it was all just self-defense. But with all the news reports and the social media posts about me that week, people didn't see what it really was. People didn't see it as anything but that Rob Johnson was nothing but a fucking psychopath that killed his fan. So I was claimed guilty by the court and sentenced to life in prison. Just like that. My life, who I was, gone. The woman says, "So how long were you in jail?" Rob says, "Just one winter. Come the next year, the reanimated corpses became a thing in this world." The man asks, "Was prison as bad as they say it was back then?" Rob says, "It wasn't as bad as expected, actually. I mean, I had to blend in with some bad people to survive, but a lot of people had it a lot worse than me." We see Rob sitting in the cafeteria. As he's talking with some of the other mates in there, we see one of the guys saying, "And then I just let her have it. I killed her so fast and I got my money from that stupid bitch and I got busted, yo!" Everyone laughs, and we see Rob is clearly fake laughing, and he's just doing it to blend in. Then the news comes on in the background as we hear, "There was a murder downtown. A 34-year-old man brutally killed a woman and her 7-year-old daughter in their house, not even an hour ago." The woman's name was Linda Miller, and the little girl was Kim Miller. They say the man that murdered these 2 individuals is named Chris Williams. Officers claim that they are still on the search for him as we speak. The guys at the table are still just talking over it, but then he sees a man at the table all alone, crying, as he starts punching some of the prison guards, and he yells to one of them in particular, "I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you!" As we see the prison guards take this man away, the woman says, "Damn. Yeah, it sounds like others had it way worse in there." Rob says, "I may have lost my career, I may have lost my fame, but there's some people that have it worse. A lot worse. That's for damn sure." Anyway, not longer after that, I kept hearing news reports about a virus going around, but I didn't want to believe it. I think we were all in the state of denial at the beginning of it all. We see him sitting in the cell as we hear two guards passing by, and he says, "Hey Doug, Lincoln, I'm sorry for stopping you both, but I've been hearing some stories on the news about the dead coming back to life and killing people. I think they also mentioned that they eat people alive when they come back. That's all just fake news, right?" We see the guard says, "The news says what it says. And we know you think the news is fake. We've had some discussions about this a million times over. You won't be seeing much of me for the next 2 weeks. I'll be away with my family. So these conspiracies will need to be shared with not only someone else, but someone who actually gives a damn. Everything is going to be fine. Besides, the world ain't going mad. We are." Rob narrates, and that's what those two idiot guards said to me. Till one night, I woke up in my cell, and my cell door was opening. Guards were turned into reanimated corpses. Another prisoner was eating one of the guards alive on the floor. It's horrific shit. And I saw my chance to get out. So I took it. But on my way, I found the keys to a van on one of the guards. I had to kill a few of those reanimated corpses on my way out, which wasn't difficult, seeing how I already hit someone in the head out of self-defense anyway, so I didn't care at that point. As we see him making his way out of the prison, we see him make it to the van as he tries to get it to start. As he looks relieved as he sees it works, Rob says, "And I made a getaway. And somehow, I'm still here." The woman says, "Well, I know it's not your proudest moments, although thanks for sharing." As we see the woman says, "We better all turn in. Got a lot at stake right now. Tomorrow we find our people and we find out what the fuck's going on." The man says, "Works for me." As they put the fire out and go inside for the night, we then see Rob trying to fall asleep, and then he remembers him escaping from prison. Flashback. He tries to pull out of the prison in the van. We see him speeding out as a man then runs in front of the van, and Rob slams the brakes and the man says, "Jesus Christ, watch where you're going, you crazy fuck, you almost damn near killed me." Rob sees it's the guy that was crying in the cafeteria and says, "I'm getting the hell out of here, man. This place is crowded with the dead. Wanna come? I can get you wherever you wanna go back to, I promise." The man says, "I got nothing left to go back to, man, but let's go somewhere that ain't here." He gets in and puts his hand out and says, "I don't think I ever properly talked to you before. I'm Dave Miller." And Rob says, "Rob Johnson." As they shake hands, they pull out of the prison, and Dave says, "Oh, I know. I saw what happened to you on the TV. You need to know that if I didn't know who you were, I wouldn't have come with you. Fuck that shit. The last guy I talked to and opened up to back there was bailed out recently by someone. And guess what? He killed my family the second he got out. I don't even know why." Rob says, "So is that who you're after?" Dave says, "Yeah, something like that. Look, if he's alive, I'm gonna find him." Rob says, "How? How are you gonna do this without the law catching up to you?" Dave says, "Buddy, you see that shit back there? Order ain't a thing anymore. And as far as I can tell, we can do whatever the fuck we want." Rob says, "Well, no offense to you, buddy, but I think I'll pass. That sounds like a suicide mission waiting to happen. I think I'll go my own way, but I got a buddy of mine. He was left in charge of my house down here in DC. I'll stop back at home and get you some new clothes, food, and maybe even some weapons for your trip if you'd like." Dave says, "Oh, you don't have to do that, man." Rob says, "Hey, I saw your face when you lost your family, and nobody was there for you. And trust me when I say, man, you better believe me. I know what it's like to have no one who gives a damn about you. Trust me, man. It sucks." Dave says, "Thanks. I appreciate it. You know, I knew the media was wrong about you. I just knew." "Yeah, I'm sure you did," Rob says. They pull into Rob's mansion as we see it's been left behind, and Rob and Dave get out, and Rob says, "Damn, you just defend yourself and your crew acts like you never fucking existed. Fucking pathetic." They enter, and Dave says, "Beautiful place regardless." Rob says, "Thanks." They hear the sound of the city going mad from outside the house, and Dave says, "You maybe by chance have something that's not a fucking jumpsuit?" We cut to Dave putting on a black jacket and getting a new outfit, and Rob walks out with new clothes and says, "How they fit?" Dave says, "Good. Look, I really appreciate this, alright? I think you're the last kind soul I ever met since before everything fell apart for me. But karma's a bitch, cause seems like things are falling apart for everyone now. Maybe this is what they get." We see Rob and Dave packing a truck full of supplies, and Rob says, "That about does it, my friend. So where are you off to?" Dave says, "My house. Gotta see what's left. Got some things from my family that goes back generations there. A pretty cool hat, might I add. Then I'll find the people who wronged me and make things right." Rob shakes his hand and says, "Good luck to you. I hope you get some peace on this shit, bro. And hell, maybe we'll meet again someday." As we see the sun setting, Dave drives away as he goes on his own journey. And as we see Rob look sad, he's left alone in this world gone mad. Currently, Rob lays awake, remembering how it all started for him, as he then holds a necklace on his neck made out of old glass, and as he holds it, we then see a tear running down his eye as he cries himself to sleep. We see Jade wakes up in a nice clean bed. We see her arm has been wrapped up. She looks out the window to see she's still at this ranch. She slowly walks out of the room down a hallway, leading to a fancy ranch house. Jade says, "Hello?" She doesn't hear a response. She walks out to the porch as we see 3 guys and a girl in the distance doing work around the ranch. We see a woman walk onto the porch and says, "Hey, glad you're awake. How you feeling?" Jade looks on edge and says, "Better now." "How long was I out for?" The woman says, "About 2 days, give or take." "Sorry I haven't introduced myself. I'm Nancy. And that out there is my husband, Urban. And those are my sons, Scott, Nate, and my daughter, Lisa." Jade says, "Big family. For this world, at least." Nancy says, "We are. But we've lost others. We've lost a lot of our neighbors over the years. I had another son who was bitten by a reanimated one not so long ago. But the ones we lost, they always live within us. They keep us going. You have anyone like that?" Jade says, "My parents, my sister." And Nancy says, "We found you out on your own. But my husband said that you kept saying the word dad in your sleep. We figured it was someone you were looking for or who was looking for you." Jade looks hesitant, but she says, "My second dad, yeah. I was taken away from him not too long ago. I don't even know if he's alive. But I'm gonna find out." Nancy says, "Well, if he's still out there, I guarantee you, he's looking for you." Back with Rob and the Wests. We see thunder and lightning as the woman is startled by it and she wakes up from it, as she looks relieved and starts to fall back asleep. We then zoom out from the house from the perspective of someone watching them. We see 6 men with skull masks are looking at the house as one of them signals to the other one and they start walking towards the house. We see 2 of them go to the back door, which leads into the basement. We see them walking through this dark basement with knives in their hands. The other one has a crowbar with spikes at the end. They walk up the old stairs as they try the door, but it's locked. We see Rob wakes up as we see he's having trouble sleeping, and he gets up and grabs a smoke and goes out to the porch for a second. He opens up the door, and out of nowhere, a knife is thrown and hits him in the chest. The man and the woman hear this and immediately go for their weapons. The other two downstairs are trying to kick the door down. The woman then takes her handmade gun that fires nails and pops two of them who are trying to kill Rob. Meanwhile, the other two enter the main floor and they surround the man as the man pulls out his machete and says, "Intruders, huh? I really fucking hate intruders." He swings at both of them and puts his machete into one of their necks as the blood gushes out. The other one then cuts him with the knife on his crowbar. The man swings at him and takes the masked man and throws him onto the living room table. As the man is struggling to get up, we see the man picks up his machete and looks at him with a death stare and says, "This machete goes back decades in our family. Killed many people with it. But there's always room for one more, huh?" He then puts the machete in the middle of his skull and kills the masked man and turns around to see the woman as he hugs her and says, "Oh my God, are you okay?" She says, "Yeah, you?" "I'm fine," he says. Rob says, "We gotta get the hell out of here. More could be coming." They take their stuff and run out, but then Rob sees something on one of their corpses that catches his eye. He looks at the knife that the masked man had and looks sad and angry, and then uses the knife to stab its dead corpse over and over again. The woman says, Rob, he's dead." Rob is crying and says, "She's gone. She's gone. She's gone." As he breaks down, he then hears the sound of something coming from the woods as he sees the other two men running away from this ever so quickly. Rob looks furious and starts running after them. The woman and the man follow as we see Rob running after these two masked men, and as he catches up to one of them, he takes his head and smashes it against a tree, killing him instantly. The last guy trips and falls as he sees Rob do this to his friend, and Rob then pulls out his sword with the skull handle on the end and puts it to his throat and says, "Where the fuck is my daughter? What did you do to her? Tell me! Tell me." The man says, "Rob, this isn't how we do this, man. We can use them to get information." Rob says, "Information? We got all the information we need right here, and it's staring us right in the face. He's got no purpose anymore. This guy, he's nothing but a pig, and I'm the fucking butcher." He stabs him over and over again until he's dead, and Rob just sits there covered in blood, and the woman says, "Rob, I said no secrets and I meant it. Who is she? Tell me about this person you're looking for." Flashback to 2033. We see deadheads eating a dead corpse as we see someone kills it. We see it's Rob's sword, but it doesn't have the skull on the handle yet. He's walking towards a cabin as we see he puts his sword on the porch, confirming he lives here. He then goes inside for the night as we see the sun setting. We see him sitting at a table, all alone. We see him cleaning his sword. We see him reading, and then we see him going to bed. The next day, we see him waking up. He puts his boots on, grabs his sword, and goes out for the day again. We see the dead corpse from yesterday is now just bones and a bit of blood in the grass. We then hear a noise of someone walking. Rob backs up against the tree as he hears someone coming, and Rob comes out as we see it's a dad and his little girl, and the dad says, Hey, we're not infected. They look very freaked out, and Rob puts his weapon down and says, "You should take your daughter and leave. It ain't safe around here." He starts walking away, and the guy says, "Please, sir, please, we need your help. My wife is dying. She was bit, and we lost all of our food. Please, sir." Rob sees the little girl and feels bad and says, "All right, show me. I'll help you put her down. Then I'll be gone." The man says, "Thank you," as we then see them pair up. Later on, we see them walking into an old building that's half destroyed, as we see the guy runs to his wife and says, "Oh, hey, baby, are you still with me?" She looks out of it and says, "Can you hear those angels, Jack?" Jack says, "Yeah, I hear them, baby. They're beautiful." She starts to slip away as we hear her say, I love you, Jack. Please, do what's best. Do what's best for my Jade." Confirming the young girl is a younger Jade. The mother then dies in Jack's arms as he breaks down and pulls out his knife, but he then tries a few times, but he can't bring himself to do it. We see him say, "Jade, don't look, baby. Don't look." Rob is standing there and says, "I'll do it." Jack gives Rob the knife, and Rob stands over her and puts the blade inside of her head before she turns. We then see Rob, Jack, and Jade sitting there. As they all look broken, Rob says, "I'm sorry this happened to you. You mind telling me how she died?" Jack says, We were checking out a pantry when we got attacked. My wife tried saving Jade from the dead, but they got her instead. I even cut myself on metal fighting one of those things off. I barely made it out myself." They then see the dead coming from far as we see a crowd of them running towards them. Rob sees this and says, "We gotta go now." Jade says, No, we can't leave Mom." Jack says, "It's okay, baby. It's gonna be okay." As they run away, we then see they've been running for a while in the woods. As they stop, and Rob says, "They're not far. We have to find a place to hide out." And Jack says, I can't run anymore. I can't run." And Rob says, "What the hell? What's going on with you?" Jack says, "Nothing. I need to stop for a minute." As we see a bite showing through his shirt, and Rob says, "Oh my God. Jack, you weren't cut. You were bit." Jack then looks at it, devastated. And Jade says, No, he's gonna be okay, right? Please, that's my daddy." Jack says, "Jade, I need you to listen to me, okay? You're gonna be fine. But you have to leave. You have to leave me behind. I'm a danger to you, just like Mom was. You have to go." Jack then looks at Rob and says, "Look, I know we just met. I know I just met you, and I know that you didn't sign up for any of this. But I'm begging you, please, sir, keep my daughter safe." Rob looks forward and sees the dead are coming from a distance, as we then see he doesn't really know how to react to this. And Rob says, I can keep her safe. I will keep her safe." Jack kisses his daughter and says, "Go with him, baby." Jade is crying and says, "No, Daddy, please." Rob has to pull her off of her father as he pulls her away, and Jack says, I love you so much. Please, don't forget that, baby." As Rob takes Jade and runs away with her, as Jack just stands there waiting for the dead to get him too, as he puts his hands out and smiles and says, "I'm coming home, baby," as the dead take him down and rip him apart. We then see Rob has been running for hours. As the time goes by, he and Jade make it to his cabin. As he sees she's still crying, and Rob looks broken and says, "I'm so sorry, kid. I couldn't even imagine. Look, I know this is not where you want to be. You're never going to want to be here, and that's okay, kid. Hell, you don't need to talk if you don't want to. I understand. But if there's one thing I can promise you, kid, I am not going to let anything happen to you, even if it's the last thing I do." As she hugs him, as she still is crying, and Rob starts breaking down in sadness. Currently, we see bloody hands as we see Rob says, "My mind has been lost for years until I found her. I finally felt like I had a purpose to make sure that that child survived." The woman says, "I'm sorry. You did the right thing taking her in like that. You mind telling me how you lost her?" We see Rob says, "We spent years together out there surviving. At first, she didn't talk much. Then it was one day. She found my old guitar in my room and started playing it." Flashback to 2034, a year after her parents' deaths. We see Jade playing the guitar as Rob walks in, and she stops playing, and Rob says, "Sounded good. I didn't know you played." Jade says, "My daddy used to play. He didn't truly know how good he was." Rob says, "He's the one that taught you that?" Jade says, "Yeah, he taught me mostly everything." Rob says, "Hey, you want to know something cool?" Jade says, "What?" Rob says, "I used to be a rock star back in the day." Jade says, "What is that?" Rob says, "Oh, I suppose you're only 8 years old. You probably wouldn't know anything about that. Well, kid, a rock star is someone that gets up on a stage in front of several people and plays music. Back then, we used to have things called electric guitars, when we would plug it into this thing called an amp, and the sound was just... it was like no other. You felt powerful up there, standing up there in front of everybody." Jade says, "I wish I could have seen that." Rob says, "It's alright, kid. Although in some ways, I wish you could have seen the old world." Jade says, "Yeah, me too." Rob says, "Alright, kid. I'm gonna get dinner started. One thing though, one condition. Maybe start doing more of this talking thing every once in a while." Jade says, "Okay." As we see a montage of time going by, we see her fishing, as Rob says, "You're swinging too hard, just maybe not so aggressive." We see her chopping up wood for the first time, as we see it's not working for her, and Rob says, "Here, watch my form." As we see him cut it perfectly through, and she rolls her eyes. Rob says, "Try again." We see her playing board games with him, as she's saying, "No! Come on, you were way off the line there." Rob says, "I was not. And what are you doing down here? You're not getting any points down that route." As more time passes, we see her playing guitar. We see her going up to a deadhead as she stabs it in the head, but the axe gets stuck as she says, I can't do it." Rob says, "I got your back. Come on, you got this." And as she gets the axe unstuck and stabs it, as it then transitions to an older Jade, killing a deadhead like it's nothing. She turns around and says, "That's the first one we've seen in months." Rob says, "Music to my ears. Say maybe in 30 we'll go on that hunt?" Jade says, "Down south again, Dad? Seriously?" Rob says, "What? You getting too old for that now?" Jade says, "I'm 22. Why can't I choose the route this time?" Rob says, all right. North? Jade says, works for me. We see Jade playing the guitar like nobody's business, as we see her getting her things ready for the hunt. We see Rob and Jade sitting by a campfire. We see Jade saying, getting harder to find food. Feels like there's less and less every time we go out here. Rob says, we'll go out for a few more days or so. Maybe find something. Rob says, if we do. Jade says, I'm gonna take a leak. She goes off into the woods, and Rob is sitting there as he starts reading one of his books. But then, we hear the sound of footsteps in the woods as Rob says, Jade? You there? He starts walking into the woods slowly as he says again, Jade? Baby, you there? But then, he then sees her necklace on the ground as he picks it up, as he sees multiple tracks going forward, as he realizes someone either took her or killed her. He looks terrified and goes back and grabs his things and puts out the fire very quickly and grabs his sword and starts following the tracks trying to find his daughter. Currently, Rob says, I looked and I looked for hours until I found those sons of bitches. Not gonna lie, I felt like I blacked out during most of it in worry for my daughter. Flashback to a week ago. We see he follows the tracks and finds these guys. He then sees there's 4 of them as he's hiding in the trees, standing there, as he's just watching them and he's seething. He then comes up behind one of them and stabs them in the back as it goes through the other side. He very quickly slices 2 of their heads clean off, and he takes the last one and starts punching him in the face over and over again as Rob says, what did you do to her? Where in the fuck is my daughter? The guy removes his mask and says, Are you Rob Johnson? Jesus Christ. I thought you would have rotted away in that cell by now. Rob says, you see my face? You see who I am? Then come on. Speak to your idol. I'll give you a nice autograph, motherfucker. The guy says, okay. Yeah, we took her. Rob says, where is she? The guy says, somewhere you won't find her. See what we all do? We ain't proud of doing. But we're still alive because of it. And we all answer to somebody that's gonna have good use for her. Rob says, look in my eyes. Do you think I give a shit about what you people do? The man looks impressed and says, all right, look. So in honor of that great music of yours, I'll do something we don't usually do. You really want your daughter back? Rob says, I care about her more than my own life, you motherfucker. The guy says, well, lucky for you, I'm the head collector for this faction. Although you're gonna have to find me 3 strangers in return. Take the place of your daughter. Consider the other 2 interest payments. Rob says, you son of a bitch. And if I don't? And the man says, well, then she dies. Look, our leader listens to me. But if I show up with 3 instead of 1, that could go a long way for me and for you. Rob looks horrified and says, how do I know my daughter will still be alive by the time we make this deal? The man says, in respect of your music, like I said, that hard work of yours. Besides, after all, I'm your biggest fan, sir. Rob says, I'll do it. The man says, oh, and any deadheads you find out there, take their skulls. Bring as many as you can to the trade. I really want the headline on this one. And in front of the big man, it'll look good on me. 1 week, Rob. If you don't show up with the skulls and those 3 dead bodies ready for me, then we will feast on your daughter. Confirming they're cannibals. as Rob looks scared as he lets the man go, as he sits there all alone in the rain, crying his eyes out. And currently, Rob says, "It's been a week, and I don't know if it's too late." We see a river, as we see lightning go off, and we see the reflection of Rob standing over the river. He's wiping the blood off of his hands as we see the guy says, "Rob, come on, let's go." As we see the bloody water, it then cuts to clean water, as we then see Jade washing her hands as we see her at Blackberry Ranch. Back at Blackberry Ranch, she walks into the kitchen as they are all getting ready for dinner, as we then focus on a big plate of meat, and Nancy says, "Hey Jade, how are you feeling?" Jade looks at the meat on the plate and looks very put off by it and says, I'm still feeling a little lightheaded. I think I'm just gonna get some more rest for now." Nancy says, "Well, okay. Well, if you're hungry, we'll save you a plate. Does that sound good?" Jade says, "Thank you." She smiles and then walks away. We see Jade locks herself in this room as we then see her look nervous as she tries two of the windows, but they won't open. She then has no choice but to bust it down. She then climbs out of the window and jumps down onto the ground. She very quickly walks away from the house and tries getting away. Suddenly, we then see thunder and lightning that startles her. Back with Rob. He sees the thunder and lightning and the woman says, "Hey, stop." Rob looks up ahead as he sees a bunch of blood and weapons on the ground. As the two from the West family look horrified, the woman picks up one of the weapons and says, "That's Holly's." The man says, "That's Morgan's." They look horrified and the woman says, "There's no bodies." Rob then realizes what happened and says, "They took him, just like they did my daughter." They both look scared for their people, and then Rob thinks about his daughter as we then see Jade walking through the fields. As she walks up to a barn, she then sees blood on the handle as she slowly opens the door to see what's inside. As she enters the barn, we see body parts all around in buckets. We see a table with ropes on it as Jade looks freaked out. She now knows they're cannibals. And as she runs out the door trying to get away, she is then knocked to the ground as we see the two sons, Scott and Nate, as they stand above her, and Nate says, "Everything's food for something else," as they knock her out. The woman says, "Fuck, if only we still had the outlaws on our side." "Rob, I'm gonna need you to do what you did before. You tracked them down once. Can you do it again?" Rob looks pissed and says, "You're fucking right I can." We see Jade wakes up in the barn, as we see her hands tied up by rope, as we see she tries finding a weapon to use, as we see she uses one of the chains, and as she's getting it, we hear someone walking towards the barn. As she backs up behind the door, as she is standing there nervous at the door opens. Scott walks in. Jade takes the chain and comes up behind him as he enters, and she strangles him with the chain as they then fall to the floor. As she's strangling him, she says, "Killing people isn't easy, because it ruins who you are over time. But that's why I have to kill you. Because me killing you is what will destroy you." As she then rips his head off with the chain as the blood splatters all over the floor. She then takes Scott's knife off of him and cuts the rope and frees herself. She then runs out of the barn and across the fields trying to get away as she opens up the front gate of the ranch and she's gone. Back with Rob. Rob and the two Wests are following the tracks to find Jade and the rest of the West family fighters. But then, the tracks end and Rob says, "The tracks end here." The woman says, "That's impossible, there's nothing here." But then, they hear the sound of something in the woods. They all look on edge, and then we see a reanimated bear covered in barbed wire comes out of the woods. They all look scared as the woman tries firing her nail gun at him to slow him down. The bear gets knocked back a bit, and Rob says, "Run!" They run through the woods as the woman fires more shots at the bear, as we see them approaching a jungle bridge, as the bear catches up to Rob and tackles him down. As we see the barbed wire cuts him a bit, as the bear is about to rip him apart, as the woman shoots it again, and Rob then stabs the bear. He quickly gets up, and the bear is still alive, as it then roars at them. Then the woman takes a few more shots at the bear, and after many more attempts, she fires enough, and the thing dies. They are all out of breath, and the other guy says, "We all good?" The woman says, "Yeah." "Rob, you okay?" Rob says, "I'm fine. It just cut me a bit." "Holy shit, I've never faced one of those in years." The woman says, "Yeah, that made my heart race, can't lie. Come on, let's go." We then see them cross the bridge as we see the sun coming up. We see them walking through the destruction of what's left of the world, as they then see an old stadium up ahead. As we see, they pull out their weapons. The woman says, "We'll stop here for a bit. We'll take a quick break. We've been doing this all night, damn it. We need some rest." Rob says, "No, we gotta keep moving." The woman says, "We will. First, I need to take a look at that cut on you." The man says, "Let's take 10. Come on." They then enter and they slowly walk into the stadium as we see dead bodies all around. And we then see fresh blood in the grass. And the woman says, "Hold up. Someone's been through here. Someone's been through here recently. Look at all these bodies." "Yeah, no, something's off here. Keep your weapons out." Then we see someone walk out onto the field on the opposite side. As we see, they all pull out their weapons, and Rob says, "Stay right there! Lay down your weapons!" The person puts their hands up, and the woman says, "Nice and slow," as they start walking towards them. But then, Rob's eyes go from tense to happy. As we see the person walking up to them is Jade. Rob then runs towards her as they hug, and Rob holds her tight and says, "I found you. I found you. I knew you were alive. I knew. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't find you sooner. Are you okay?" Jade says, I'm just glad you're here." She hugs him as we then see she's clearly traumatized, but she's not letting that ruin her reunion with her father. The woman walks up to them and says, Hi. You're Jade, right? Jade says, yeah. How do you know who I am? The woman says, your father here has been looking for you for a very long time. We've been helping him out. Jade says, we can't stay long. Rob says, why? What's going on? Jade says, I came in here trying to hide from them. The woman says, the skull people? Jade says, yes. And they've been right on my tail the whole time. We need to go now. But then we see the skull hunters come out from every direction as every one of the exits of the stadium is blocked off. As they surround our characters from a distance in every direction, as Rob and the two from the West family and Jade all stand together in the center of the stadium, as Rob says, my regrets is not finding you sooner. I promise we ain't dying today.